This is a Transportation TV News update. I'm Tony Dorsey reporting. For the second time this week, President Barack Obama delivered a speech addressing the nation's double-digit unemployment rate. On Wednesday, the president made comments at the White House, having just completed discussions with a bipartisan group of lawmakers.
We can't go back to an economy that yielded cycle after
President
cycle.
Obama echoed the job growth proposals he offered during a speech delivered the day before, when he said that additional spending on infrastructure projects was the way to create jobs. The Bureau of Labor Statistics reports that November unemployment in the construction trades jumped to a staggering 19.4%, up from 18.7% in October, by far the highest sector reporting. The president also said his plan includes tax breaks for small businesses and spending for energy conservation programs like Cash for Caulkers, a nickname given to in-home weatherization programs. The president didn't give specifics, and while White House officials said it will be up to Congress to work out the final details, they'd like to see billions spent quickly for highways, airports, sewer systems, and railroads, and similar infrastructure projects. The American Association of State Highway and Transportation Officials, AASHTO, immediately released a statement applauding the president's strategy. AASHTO Executive Director John Horsley said, while transportation received just 6% of American Recovery and Reinvestment Act dollars, the sector continues to lead the way in terms of job creation and preservation.
It's very helpful to have the president on record saying yes. We've been working very closely with leadership in the House and the Senate. There's not yet agreement on what specific approach to take, but there's strong interest in the House in going one way, interest in the Senate in doing a jobs program. Now that the president's on board, we have all three bodies ready to move in a common direction. Now what I think we need to do over the course of the next couple of weeks is see if we can bring them closer to agreement on a specific proposal and then get it into law.
Democratic leaders in both chambers are designing jobs packages, and the House could pass a version this month. In other news, Transportation Secretary Ray LaHood and Administrator Peter Rogoff of the Federal Transit Administration outlined the government's plan to take over responsibility for enforcing safety standards for public transit. LaHood said calls for a federal takeover of transit safety intensified after last June's fatal metro collision just outside of the nation's capital.
But we're going to talk about safety first. That has to be our priority, and that's really the purpose of the legislation. I think everyone in this region woke up the next day after that crash and said, who's responsible for looking after safety? And there really was nobody.
9 people died and 80 others were injured in the June collision, one in a series of fatal mishaps plaguing Metro in recent months. The administration's plan would give the federal government authority to set and enforce transit safety standards for 27 transit agencies nationwide. Not everyone is convinced the plan will work.
Additional regulatory requirement is possibly proposed right now by the administration may not and would not be that effective. What we need are people with the very best qualifications possible, people with technical skills that can not only deal with software but sophisticated and different types of technology used on these different public transit systems available.
I just happened to bring a prop.
Rogoff displayed a lag screw he says is widely embedded in the Chicago transit system. He says the 60-year-old part forces trains to slow down to just 6 miles an hour over some sections of CTA track, posing what he called a potential safety risk and a reliability drag that undermines the economic productivity of the people who use the system.
We are really looking to try to get to performance-based measures. Every regulation that would be put out under this law would be subject to cost-benefit analysis and would have to show that the benefits exceed the costs. But the position of the administration is that the safety dollar really needs to be the first expenditure of these transit systems, not the last. And therefore, we need to make sure that they are spending their capital dollars at whatever level on their greatest safety vulnerabilities.
Minnesota Congressman James Oberstar, chairman of the House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, expressed interest in the idea, but only as one piece of a broader surface transportation infrastructure bill he hopes to pass next year.
This is the nation.
When someone from New York travels to California, they expect the same level of safety there as they had when the state they left. So we need to engage all the states and the federal government in this partnership for safety.
Also in the news this week, Secretary of the Oklahoma Department of Transportation and Chair of the Construction Subcommittee of the American Association of State Highway and Transportation Officials, AASHTO, testified on behalf of the association before the House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee hearing on implementation of the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act. The Federal Highway Administration reports this week that more than $21 billion, or 80% of ARRA funds set aside for transportation, has been approved for funding.
The Recovery Act has clearly demonstrated that transportation infrastructure investment delivers jobs and boosts to the economy. And state DOTs have, again, proven that we can deliver on our commitments. We are encouraged that the administration has endorsed additional funding to continue modernizing our transportation network as one means of accelerating job growth. We applaud the efforts underway in the House and Senate to come up with an agreement on a job growth package that includes infrastructure funding.
Ridley attributed ARRA's successful implementation in his state and others to early planning and enhanced transparency, accountability, and oversight requirements. Ridley said a lot more highway and bridge construction projects need to be funded. The state departments of transportation have identified an additional 9,500 projects valued at $70 billion that could be quickly advanced, creating thousands of jobs across rural and urban areas, Ridley said. That's the Transportation News Update. I'm Tony Dorsey reporting.